Chapter 7 closes out our chapters on the declensions for the nouns. The third declension is saved for last. It's a little bit more difficult because it's a declension based on consonants. It's the second declension and the first declension, both are vowel declensions. The third declension is a consonant declension. You can see here how that breaks down. The masculine and feminine genders are both wrapped under similar endings. SOS, IA is how I remember it, and then SON, see us. Remember that we have some songs to memorize this with. And then the neuter doesn't even have endings for the nominative and accusative for the regular endings, but the interiors repeat, and then the plural has an alpha for the nominative and accusative ending. So this is really the table that you must commit to memory. Other than these endings, there are a multiplicity of just exceptions. Let me show you, as Stevens lays out on the next page, why we have so many exceptions and why these endings are so volatile. And that is because we have consonants, and consonants don't like to interact with sibilants. And you've seen that some of these endings contain sibilants. So remember our square of stops from chapter 1? Based on pronunciation and the airflow through our mouth, we divide them up in labials, palatals, and dentals, and you see resultant endings. So remember here that in the third declension, the Omicron sigma ending usually is genitive. So that's a little bit confusing because in the second declension ending, we know that in the nominative. To make sure that we don't fall for this confusion, our lexicons and our vocabularies will actually mention for third declension nouns both a nominative entry and a genitive entry. Okay, then there are some shortcuts mentioned here by Stevens as far as some of the exceptions and frequently occurring phenomena. You see some words that we encounter frequently in the New Testament, and you can see that they have certain stems. It mentions a dental stem, and right away you recognize that as one of those consonants that we know from the square of stops. So that one is going to be extremely volatile, right? And we see an upsilon, and so that's going to be interesting as well, and a diphthong, and so forth and so on. Okay, so other words that we will see, words for faith, will also appear. Okay, so some exceptions to certain rules, such as the omega nu almost always being the genitive plural, are cone, ion, and icon being exceptions to that rule. Again, for our purposes, I want you just to know the basic paradigm, and the other ones we are going to put on our cards. But look over it and you can see indeed there's quite some variation. Just know what to look for. The dictionary format, again, is such as this. You will first see the nominative being mentioned, and you can see that here, the nominative singular for sarx, with the gloss of flesh, is mentioned there, followed by the genitive, sarcos. And then it's gender, because we don't know in the singular here if it's masculine or feminine, but we know this here. It has a he. Why is this important? Well, remember, we are going to have to match this for article purposes with an article, and in this case the article then will have to be a first declension article taken from the Ada pure. Some other patterns that we see here is the word archon, for which the genitive will read argontos. It's in the masculine, as you can see, because it has the ha, and so if it would have an article, it will have an article based on the second declension masculine. Of course, if it is in the genitive or in the dative, the interiors would repeat. but it would still look like a masculine. And some other exceptions here. Soma, somatas. It has the ta, so you recognize it's the neuter. That would also be represented if you had a article for it. Here's another one, pistis or pistios for faith. That's actually in the feminine, so any kind of article would be a first declension article. And finishing out with one last exception here, ethnos, ethnous for the genitive, and it would take a neuter article. Okay, and so your exercises simply just repeat the square of stops to familiarize yourself with it, and then go through a host of exceptions just to familiarize ourselves with that.